Everyone has a weakness, something that makes them emotional, something that makes them vulnerable, something that makes them react. It could be fear, it could be loneliness, it could be insecurity, or the need to be understood. These weaknesses are human. Everyone has them, but the moment someone discovers yours, influence becomes easier. Because now, they don't need to control you directly. They only need to touch your weakness, and your reaction becomes automatic. You stop thinking. You respond emotionally. And emotional reactions are the easiest to guide. A manipulator does not attack your strength. They focus on your vulnerability. They listen carefully. They observe quietly. They notice what affects you, what makes you uncomfortable, what makes you defensive. And once they identify it, they wait. They don't rush. They don't reveal it. They simply keep it in mind until the right moment. And when that moment comes, they use it. Sometimes subtly, sometimes gently, sometimes disguised as concern. But the effect is the same. Your emotions activate, your logic fades, and your response becomes predictable. This is why emotional influence is powerful, because it bypasses rational thinking. When you feel insecure, you seek reassurance. When you feel afraid, you look for guidance. When you feel understood, you build trust. And once trust is built, your guard lowers. You stop questioning. You stop analyzing. You begin to accept, not because you are weak, but because your emotions are being used. And the most dangerous part is that it feels like connection. It feels like someone understands you. It feels like someone cares. But sometimes that understanding is only used to guide your decisions quietly. Weakness-based influence does not happen suddenly. It develops slowly. The more someone understands you, the more precise their influence becomes. They know when you are uncertain. They know when you need validation. They know when you are likely to agree. And they use timing carefully. They introduce ideas when you are most vulnerable. They offer suggestions when you are emotionally open. They guide conversations when you are seeking clarity. And because the timing feels natural, you never notice the influence. It feels like support. It feels like help. But it is shaping your thinking over time. This is how decisions change. You begin to trust their perspective. You begin to accept their suggestions. You begin to follow their reasoning. And slowly, your choices shift, not drastically, but gradually, until your behavior reflects what was guided instead of what was independent. This is why understanding yourself is important. Because when you know your weaknesses, they cannot be used easily. When you recognize your triggers, you can pause. When you feel emotional pressure, you can step back. And when you notice influence, you can question it. Control loses power when awareness increases. Manipulation weakens when you slow down. And influence fades when you start thinking again. So the next time someone understands you perfectly, pause. The next time someone says exactly what you needed to hear, pause. The next time you feel emotionally guided, pause. Because that moment might not be connection. It might be influence, working quietly through your weakness. And once you see it, you begin to take control back. This is just the beginning. Another way weaknesses are used is through pressure. Not obvious pressure, but subtle emotional pressure. You may hear words like, "You always do this," "You never understand," "I thought you cared." These phrases are not random. They target your emotions. They create guilt. They create doubt. And once guilt appears, your decisions change. You begin to explain yourself. You begin to justify. You begin to agree. Not because you want to, but because you want the pressure to stop. This is how emotional pressure works. It pushes you slowly without looking like control. Sometimes it appears as disappointment, sometimes as silence, sometimes as distance, and your mind tries to fix it. You try to restore comfort, you try to restore connection, and in that moment, you become easier to influence because your focus is no longer clarity. Your focus becomes emotional relief, and when relief becomes the goal, logic disappears. Another powerful weakness is the need for approval. Everyone wants to be accepted. Everyone wants to be valued. And when someone provides that approval, you begin to trust them faster. Their words carry more weight. Their opinions feel important, and gradually, you begin to align with them. Not consciously, but emotionally. You agree more easily. You hesitate less. You follow more naturally. Because approval creates comfort, and comfort reduces resistance. This is why influence often comes from someone who understands you, supports you, and validates you. Because once validation is established, guidance becomes easier. And your decisions begin to shift without conflict, without resistance, without you noticing. There is also another weakness: certainty. People are drawn to confidence. When someone speaks with certainty, it feels convincing. Even if the idea is not correct, confidence creates trust, and trust reduces questioning. You begin to believe because it sounds certain, because it feels sure, and slowly their perspective becomes yours. This is why influence often sounds calm, clear, and confident, not aggressive, not loud, just certain. And certainty lowers your guard because your mind prefers clarity over uncertainty. So when someone removes your doubt, you accept their direction. And once direction is accepted, control becomes subtle. Your thinking adapts, your choices align, your behavior follows, not because you were forced, but because certainty guided you. This is why awareness matters. When you recognize your weaknesses, they lose power. When you notice emotional pressure, you slow down. When you feel the need for approval, you step back. When certainty feels too convincing, you question it. And in that moment, influence weakens, because control needs speed, but awareness creates pause. And that pause is where independent thinking returns. So the next time you feel emotional pressure, pause. The next time you seek approval, pause. The next time certainty feels too comfortable, pause, because your weakness might be guiding your decision. And the moment you see it, you begin to take control back. This is just the beginning.